Previously on Comics Online, sugar.
This one's for you, Morph. Ah!
Newton Brothers, how did that come to be your title? Because you aren't brothers, right?
We are not brothers.
We're not biological brothers, but we both are working in situations where we need to use a name that wasn't our own. And at the time when we were first starting out, and so we came up with Newton Brothers as fans from Isaac Newton, and because of math and music and sort of how correlation. And then we started using the name, and it just. And then when we got out of those jobs and started just scoring on our own, it just sort of stuck. So we just kept it ever since.
And how does the collaborative process work for the two of you guys?
It's usually, we actually usually kind of silo ourselves. We don't talk much about the project. And we'll kind of go our separate ways at first, and then we'll come together and discuss our own ideas with each other. And then we'll start sort of flip-flopping, and I might take one of his ideas, or he might take one of my ideas, or a sound, or like, oh, what synth did you use, or which guitar did you use for this thing, and it kind of becomes like, at that point, like sort of a bit of a hodgepodge. And then we kind of like come together on ideas, and that's usually how it starts. And then that kind of continues throughout the process. But we like to be separate at first, because then we're not influencing each other, and it kind of gives us automatic separate point of view, which is nice.
It's very nice.
And that's been since the inception of you guys working together?
Since the beginning, yeah.
Okay, no pun with it.
Yeah, that's good.
Anecdotally, I heard the story that Van Halen once was hanging out with Ron Wasserman. I don't know if you know this. Ron Wasserman wrote the original music.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I love that.
But I heard a story that I guess Van Halen was very impressed with the guitar lick and asked him to play it one time, and then Ron Wasserman pulls out the keyboard. And that surprised Van Halen. But he did a lot of these iconic pieces that are so quintessential to a lot of people's childhood on the keyboard.
He did.
And you guys have this immense background with, I mean, I couldn't even name all the instruments that I understand you guys play, and probably score for even more. What was the decision-making process for adapting things from sort of the original style in which it was done to this new contemporary, really exciting style that you guys have just made brand new and fresh?
I think it was for the main titles. I mean, Andy can get more into details, but it was more trial, and see what works and what doesn't early on, because the actual show had more of an arc of tonality in terms of like the 90s, going in adding more modern elements as it sort of went along. But the main titles, we really wanted to stay close to the sound of what the world that he created. So we didn't want to alter very much from that. But we did try several variations and versions to see, hey, how modern do we want to go? What do we want to do? And we tried everything from guitars on synths to real guitars, and then choir, orchestra. We tried it all. So it was nice to go through it all to see what sort of people were responding to, the showrunner, the executives, and that's kind of was the first beginnings.
Yeah, and then it was cool, like, a few months ago, we connected with Ron in person, which was awesome. It was a bit nerve-wracking at first. We actually sent our assistant Lily over to like meet him first, because we were a little too nervous. He was great, but we talked to him about this exact thing, actually, because online we had read that like there was not a real guitar version. But somewhere around, I think, season 3 or 4, he said, they recorded a few different instruments, and they did add guitar on top of. And I don't recall if he said that I think the keyboard version's still in there, though, because that sound just like...
That's a sound.
It rips, yeah. And it was fun for us to like play with it, to play with all the, like Taylor said, like all the different variations of what it sounds like. I mean, we even did like the super depressing piano only version of
which
the
we
theme,
did use, actually.
which we ended up using, for the
Season
Gambit.
5 or episode 5.
Episode
I mean,
5,
yeah.
which is really fun because when we played all the, I think we had 7, 8, 9, whatever, somewhere around that number of versions. And when we played all the versions, the sad version was in the mix, and when we played it for everyone, they were like, "Oh wow, oh wow!"
They all immediately knew.
They knew exactly what they wanted to use that for. And then in the end, it kind of came down to like, is it too much of a gut punch after what had just happened? But we're pretty pumped that they all wanted to go with it. So.
I mean, music is often like one of the strong characters that are the unsung heroes of any scene, and especially in that episode in episode 5, it's amazing how much that pulls on you.
Yeah,
it lands. Yeah, it's just really, it's a great piece of music. Yeah.
Is there? Do you think that at any point we might see a lot of those things you were playing with on, DVD extras, or maybe hopefully not a thing of the past, but anything like that where we might see?
Great question. No one's talked about that, but there's a lot of just music in general that's not released. That was, dance tracks, all kinds of stuff that we had. We just didn't have. We were limited on what we could release through the album. But it'd be great to have, at some point to go through all that stuff.
Yeah, and Nilly Brosh, the guitarist, she released a video showing how she played the track and sort of like what, I think she even talks about what pedals she used, because she had sent over some versions for us and was like, oh, I used it. We kind of told her a sound we were looking for and then asked for something specific, and she's like, I use this pedal, it's kind of wild, but check it out. And that's the one that I ended up in. There's like you hear the live guitar come out at that one point. That was by design from the Marvel team and the showrunner and the director. Like, everyone wanted it to be like a bit of a mix of the keyboard with a little bit of real guitar.
Which is funny too, because he is like a pro guitar player, like studio guitar player, professional, that kind of level, where she has a certain sound and style that we thought was
like we were playing around with it, and we were just like, man, we should get someone who this is their thing. They just slay. And so she was the first one we hit up. It was like kind of random too. We know her through someone we've worked with in the past, and basically just like cold hit her up and just said like, hey, this is who we are. We've worked with your friend so and so. Would you be into this? And she was like on tour. She was like, yeah, let's do. I could do it on these days. And we sent her the stuff, and she sent us the stuff back. And then she heard nothing back from us for months. Maybe a year even. That's how long this had all. Yeah. And so then I remember sending her a text one day and basically like telling her like, it's a go, like rock and roll, and like it was really fun. It's a good situation.
Can't even imagine getting to be involved in that process. I'm curious. So I thought that it looked to me anyway like a lot of the shots, visual, the action, everything really was in step with the music. I can't imagine that's coincidence, but what was the process? Did you get storyboards to work from, or did you get completed animation to work from? How did you seemingly integrate the music so perfectly?
It's a little bit of both, yeah. We would write suites of like pre-material prior to getting actual finished lock cuts and stuff. But we would take what we thought it would be, and then we would sort of play it for everyone and see how they were responding. And then when we got closer to getting the animation, we would then see how it kind of fits in. And then we would adjust stuff if it needed to be adjusted. And for some sequences, we couldn't do that with like these massive car chases or these huge action sequences. We just used like the idea of it, and then we had to expand it. So as you said, it has to work with the animations.
So again, going from something that a lot of people, I mean, for me, Saturday mornings, that was often what I woke up to, was the and I'd be like, oh, it's time to get up. It's X-Men time.
Me too.
How does that, I mean, both as fans and also as creators on an IP that so many people love, how did it feel taking the reins on that and trying to make it your own while also being true to form and not make anyone upset? And
I mean, it was scary at first.
We've been through it before.
Yeah.
And I feel like
it's similar to Dr. Sleep. Like when we did Dr. Sleep, it was like, oh, we're working on the sequel to The Shining. Wow. Chances of failure are high, basically. Right? Is that right?
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to it.
I think once you get past like the excitement and then fear, it's just about you got to get it done. So I think that you just has to get done, and and you start not thinking so much about the sort of what if situations if this happens. But obviously, yeah, I mean, especially I think it's interesting because I didn't see The Shining until, man, I was probably 14 or 13. But every Saturday morning, X-Men, so it was a little nostalgic and strange having that sort of background now. It was great, but it was, bar was high.
There's like there's very much like a get to work phase of these projects where it's like there's some fear and like, oh, what are you gonna do? And thinking, can we do this? What's it gonna be? Can we do it? And the other side of that, once it's done, is like it's done and this is the result, whatever that is, and you can't fix that. But then there's this big valley that's just work. It's very unsexy. It's just involves like lots of coffee, running, staying as healthy as possible, and just trying and just working. Like for every good idea, there's a lot of really bad ideas. And that's by just like that. It has to be that way. Like some days it's like, boom, this idea works. It's amazing. Let's go. And then other days it's like day after day of like a single part of a melody, like it doesn't work. It doesn't give you that like feeling on your skin where you're moved. It just comes down to like work, which is very unsexy.
I like how you phrase that. I mean, the reaction has been so positive. The show's been nominated for an Emmy, and in no small part to the music being so, just the gravitas that it adds is amazing. And I mean, the album is out there and people are downloading like crazy. What are your reactions? Just how positively everyone's receiving it? I mean, are you over the moon?
I think there's, as being a fanboy yourself of, you just hope that people appreciate the nuances of everything. And a lot of that came from the showrunner, the executives, the writers, the directors, Jake, the whole team just really sort of worked with each other to try to like bring out the best and get the best ideas. And I think we just, we wanted the fans to have something they've been waiting for so long, to have something that we would feel excited about. There's things that I watch and I'm like, man, I wish, and like you can't make everybody happy, but hopefully, most. So it was great. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was fun each week to have each episode come out and just see the reactions and people responding to the show and the music and the characters and the art design and just the story. It's been thrilling, like really fun.
Speaking of the nuances and how fun it is to like see all these things, like the different character themes, some of them, I mean, they resonate. They really resonate, all of them. But some of them have like little twists on them and little things like that. Can you give me an example of something where you were like, oh, well, this one is really great intro, but I want to do this. I want to make it a little more metallic sounding when he shows up. Or is there anything where you guys, took something and slipped in something just that's totally you guys into the sound?
I think like some of the characters obviously are more complex than others, and I don't know. And for me, I always, it's terrible, but I always sort of connect to sort of the bad guys that like you're rooting for. You know what I mean? Like you even though they're bad, you want, like Magneto. You want him to like succeed, but he's complex. There's a lot of things going on. So musically, we wanted to match that, and we wanted to also kind of call back to a lot of the characters where they came from, like what is the impetus and drive of that character, dealing with the Nazis and like where sort of what makes them tick. And I think obviously, you can make metal sounds and do metal-y kind of things for Magneto, but really like a solo cello that's played in a style that sort of feels old and of that era and that time when he was a kid, and then we have sort of call and responses to certain things, and I think trying to resonate with the audience, that planting little seeds of things of like these characters have humanity to them. And I think to people, we all recognize things of characters in each other. We all recognize Storm or Beast or Magneto. There's certain things, and I feel like trying to put it into the music is the goal, like in a detailed way. Once we have like the basics, it's like trying to find that. And I think it's a lot of going through it and figuring it out.
Yeah, it's a lot of trial and error, because in in some cases it can be very obvious, but the obvious doesn't hit you right away. You know, you might go on a journey and then come back to like, oh, well, why don't we just use this for this character? Like an example would be, is it the beginning of episode 6 when Rogue is pissed? Obviously, or is it 7? Because I feel like the beginning of 6 maybe we go into space, so maybe it's 7. I think it's 7, yeah. And it's like we needed to make her just like she's angry, she's pissed, like for good reason. And it was like we had all these elaborate ideas, and then we tried an idea like a day before our presentation of the scene. Actually, just get some huge like drum ensembles that are just like, you know, and a low bass guitar that's just like chugging along, and that's it, like nothing else. And we had all these big elaborate ideas around like her anger and where it came from. But at the end of the day, we just presented this one that was just like a sort of a primal, like, you know. That's where it ended up going too, which was really fun.
So I'm going to not ask a question, but nerd out for a second at you guys. I got to be honest with you, the moment that I decided the score was amazing was almost the very, very beginning. There was the opening credits, and then there's this moment where the newscasters are telling about how dangerous it is for mutants, and there's no music yet. And they open a car door, and they pull a kid out of the car who's wearing one of the collars, and there's just this like, da-da-da-da.
Oh yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
and it like, they were like said, and they're so dangerous right now, and then it's just da-da-da-da. And I was like, okay, this is perfect. This is like, how simple of a thing at the same time is so intense and so powerful and so palpable for everything that they're describing. And it was so cool.
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of fun on that show, just from the fan and just the way. We were given quite a bit of freedom too in a lot of places, which was nice. To try to push certain things.
And that really illustrates, like that point really illustrates sort of a lot of the process we went through of like, I'm a big like proponent myself of like I will overwrite and then mute 400 tracks and end up with like 8 tracks sometimes. And in scenes like that, we like to sort of play around with like, what is the most simple version of this, so that you're not so like, you know, hey, look at what's happening. But just like to that point, like getting out of the car, it was like, boom, 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 you know, just like super simple, like very dumb. Keep it simple, stupid sort of.
But it really hit the point hard.
That's good to hear. That's great to hear.
So many questions. I don't know how much time I'm allowed to have with you guys.
No worries.
One important question I should get out there before anything else. What were your favorite moments? What's something that made you nerd out? What was something that you were just like, I can't believe I get to do music to this? And
when Wolverine attacks Magneto and he rips out all his, when he just rips him apart. That straight out of the comic book, and that I wasn't prepared for that. So that was like so wild for me. I know a lot of people with Gambit's death, but that sequence was it was kind of quick too. He just like jams Magneto, and then he just gets super angry. Rips out his skeleton.
Yeah, it's pretty savage. Yeah. Did you get it with all the back?
You get it, yeah. And so it was cool. We had this idea to play like this vocal that's just sort of this beautiful vocal that just plays, which actually is sung by Lily over there. We just wanted to kind of go against the grain, and that rather than make it like big and angry, it was just like, oh my God, the sadness. They killed Wolverine, So.
Yeah, and for me, it would be the please don't make me let you down.
Oh, that's a great line.
So we had scripts, and then we got animatics, and I remember reading that in the script, and like I like to like circle things in scripts, but they don't let us download these scripts. So I would make like these notes on my iPad, and I remember circling that and like being like always coming back to that like as the weeks went by, and then we got the animatic, and I was like, I'm scoring this right now, I was so moved by like. That says so much. Like,
writing.
Just like, please don't make me let you down. Right? Yeah. It's just so intense. Like it says so much. Like you're pleading. Yeah.
It's funny too because the films. I grew up just loving those movies, all the X-Men movies. But I was always like, why didn't they? I was always like never quite satisfied. And I didn't want to be that guy. But there was always things that were like, why didn't they do this? Why is Rogue like this? And then it was kind of, it just felt very rewarding working on the show as that, like, fan kid who wanted to see. So.
I have one more question. I'll take 10 more if I have time, but I have one more that I just thought of when you were speaking to that. I know that you guys worked with Danny Elfman previously, right? And I had read something about how Danny Elfman likes to, and maybe all composers do this a little bit, but he really liked to slip in things that are reminiscent of things in the past, while always, of course, being original. Like, I do this up and down of the entire scale right here with the whatever. Or James Horner likes to always use a certain refrain at the end of certain things. Were there things that either you guys as composers about yourselves and your history try to slip in as little Easter eggs, or things from the X-Men movies, or obviously there's things from the original show, but are there other things that maybe nobody knows are pieces of you, or other things that you slipped in there as nods or homages?
That's a good.
Yeah, I mean there were some stuff from the '90s show besides the main titles that we wanted to sort of touch on, like not necessarily fully, go all in, but I'm trying to think of, there was a scene with, what is that? Blanking right now, where it's the Phoenix when she comes out.
Oh yeah.
What episode was that? Anyways, she comes out. It's this big thing, and there's a moment where the music is actually a reflection of, I think it's season 5, or I'm not sure, but from the original, that we're sort of like paying homage to in that. And like there's a couple of moments like that we wanted to touch on. In terms of film, not so much. We kind of went with our themes and had our stuff, but we wanted to give a sense of epicness and scale in a way that you would in a film. So we treated the show more like a film than a TV show, or even really animation, because that's what we were craving as viewers. Because a lot of movies and things I've seen where, like, I'm not remembering the melody, I'm not getting the character's melody strong enough, and so maybe that's what they wanted to do. But as a viewer, I wanted something that was like leaned into it, made like Storm. Like, I can't think of any Storm themes that stick with me, that I'm just like, oh my god, like this is. And it's not to say that they didn't make something, but I didn't connect to it. So we wanted to make sure certain moments in the show where we had opportunity, that we just really paid, respect to the comics and the characters, and that's what we were trying to do with this.
Successfully, I gotta say, as a fan. What about like something that's more you guys? I mean, like, Carter Buford is really known for his 16th note triplets on the hi-hat, right?
Yeah.
That's like one of his things. Is there anything that's like you guys as musicians that you slipped in, that like, I love this refrain, or using these scales or modes?
It's weird because we actually try not to. We actually sort of talk to each other pretty frequently about trying not to do any, which I understand both sides of it, right? It's cool to have like the signature thing, but then we're always sort of very aware of like each project, like trying to be as like if you were to hear, 2 scores of ours, we would love for people to not just know like, oh, that's, and that's it's good and bad for us, because it's easier, because it's better when you have that, because it's like, then if you have a project like that, it's like, oh, let's call person that does the thing. But we really like to like annoyingly like keep each other away from like doing things. Taylor's really good about it. He's kind of like our CEO in that regard, as far as like let's hey, we've already used the synth like and that sound, like let's not use that.
Although he does some things where that have kind of become signature that he loves to do, that I'm aware of what he does.
Oh, good. So perfect. So yeah. What is it? What do I?
Like I mean, they're all like little tricks of things he'll do. Like he loves to do syncopation, where he's doing like, and then sometimes we'll pan it, like where you're doing one type of rhythm over here and another rhythm over here, and then you sort of blend it to where it feels. It's not, you're actually feeling uneasy, but you don't know why it's uneasy. It's because of the rhythm, the way it's been played. And he loves to go from like straight, and he'll be doing something super straight, and all of a sudden it goes to triplets back to straight. He likes to throw in these like, and especially with the percussion. He loves that kind of stuff.
Tension in the polyrhythms.
He loves that, and like I'm a little bit more like like use tempo here, this tempo there, this tempo here. He is like Mr. Like I'm like the tempo's changing constantly all the time, and so the feeling in the players, like it gives it this life, which is amazing, but it's also a pain to record.
Yeah, that's a good point. It is really tricky because I get really frustrated being locked into a tempo. I prefer to like look in sections, like we need to hit this
your
here.
signature style.
Yeah, we need to hit this here, we need to hit this here. And 9 times out of 10, I start a project with just like a piano sound up and a picture, and I play to picture, and then I mute the track. If I like it, I'll mute the track. I'll pull up the score on my page so that I can remember, because I'll forget in an instant. Who knows? I have no memory. And then I will watch the score and play it several times over and over again until I get a performance that feels like what the scene is. And then once that's there, then everything else is just production. Then it's
all
just
right.
like
You're the company of James Newton Howard.
It's almost tracing your own work, so to speak, in the moment.
100%. Yeah, that's
Okay.
exactly it.
Get the line art just right.
The first idea often is like in the ballpark, but off and wrong notes, and like my playing has really gone downhill since we've been composing. Like I used to feel very confident about my playing, but now it's like miss notes, miss like everything. So doing that allows me to sort of cheat, like play it and then be like, okay, that's the right idea, mute it, like what did I do? Oh yeah, go here, 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 oh what about here, boom, mute that, and then do it again. And sometimes that, like I'll do it 50 times, and then it's like, oh, a part of this take, and I'll paste them together. And then, like I said, then it just comes down to like production, like painting in the instruments, and then it's just fun at that point.
Before that is when the coffee comes in, though, right?
That's when the coffee comes in. Yeah,
It's bad.
yeah.
I believe it.
It's really he gets on. I'm pretty good about like 3 double espressos a day, and like I'll vary a little bit, but he leans into like 8 coffees a day.
It depends on our schedule. It's bad. Yeah, I can't condone that.
I have a rock star if you need one. I mean, I know I've offered you candy already, but if you need non-sugar, I have rock.
I do no sugar, but I definitely do caffeine.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a parent of 4, I can imagine like caffeine. I don't know how I'd survive
you
without
need
it.
it. Yeah, you need it.
And if you're working these many hours, these long hours, and you've got timetables that you have to fill in.
Yeah, you just have to be happy about it. So it's just like, let's go.
Get it done.
Yeah.
I really love your point of trying to like keep it fresh and keep it interesting. And like if people don't know this is you, that's amazing. But then also that there are these things that you can't help that are you.
Yeah.
That are in there anyway.
Yeah. There was like a thing that came out recently that was like surprise hiring of the Newton brothers for Daredevil.
I was so excited about that, you guys.
We're really pumped. It said something like they've virtually done only horror, and we were like, what about the rom-com we did last year for Disney? Like, what about?
Yeah.
And we like to be different on projects, So it's fun.
You know what my favorite John Williams piece is? Banding at Home. It's like track 3 from Hook. It's a jazz number.
Oh yeah.
It's not James Horner at all. I mean, sorry, not James Horner. It's not John Williams at all.
And he really shines there. With
He's
that.
so good at that stuff too. He's so talented.
I think that's the movie where he combines the visual on screen with his work the most.
He loves that style too.
Yeah,
he
does.
genuinely has passion for that style. Our orchestrator also works with John, and we're lucky enough to hear all these stories and of how John works and some of his music, and it's just that's a great score. Yeah, it's great to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do my real last question, unless you guys want to keep talking. But what are your inspirations? I mean, I know you've worked with some like amazing people, and you guys have had so much experience that you're probably for a lot of people that. But what is your inspiration?
Oh God, everything.
Yeah,
We're like big music fans in general.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many artists who, not just composers, but just musicians and painters and even just like certain athletes and people I admire in terms of just endurance and what they can do and running and sort of like these crazy swims and like these like there's all kinds of things that inspire us. I think the canned answer is more like Bernard Herrmann for me would probably be my favorite composer. And I love Alan Silvestri too. I think that guy's I grew up with his music. I mean, how can you not like Predator? I mean, like it's fantastic. Danny, awesome, very talented. Hans, there's so many great, talented composers. John Dedney, there's they just constantly are contributing to the art form and pushing it further. And I think as composers, as you're feeling inspired by stuff, you're always looking for things that you're like, I didn't think of that, or oh wow, or it's a combination of how it works with the picture. And I think it's so rich in that area. We're very, very fortunate that there are these sort of pieces that really is inspiring.
Yeah, and we're lucky that we live in this time where information, you can access so many, tutorials on synthesizers and guitar sounds and guitar pedals, behind the scenes on composers and bands and being in the studio. It's just it's really a fun time to just be inspired by what other artists and composers are doing. And like Taylor said, not just limited to music. It's inspiring to see the Olympic athletes doing what they do. Everyone sort of doing what they do in a way that they love it is very encouraging. It's naively exciting and fun.